What was invented by accident? Post-its. They were looking for a strong glue and produced a weak one, but the secretaries of the inventors pointed out that it was ideal for making removable notes. Velveeta cheese was a byproduct that was considered waste. Someone noticed that factory workers were dipping bread into that vat of byproduct during lunchtime. From there, Velveeta was born. Also, margarine was originally developed as supplemental chicken feed, but various recipes kept killing chickens. So, it was repurposed for human consumption. Penicillin? But it wasn't invented, just discovered by accident. Probably cheese. My dad's go-to small talk line for like 5 years in the 90s was, "I wonder who the first person to eat cheese was. Must have been pretty hungry." Artificial dyes. Food coloring. The chemist, William Henry Pelkin, was trying to make artificial quinine for treating malaria. He got artificial lavender dye instead. Penicillin. Alexander Fleming came back to his lab to find a mold had gotten onto one of his bacterial dishes. He noticed the mold had killed the bacteria. Polyvinyl chloride. Twice. In both cases, a chemist mixed together ingredients and put them in a sunny location. The mixture hardened into a plastic. The first guy wrote it down, but didn't tell anyone about it. The second one patented it. No one found a use for it until 54 years after it was first synthesized. Bandaging wounds. A French field surgeon had run out of coal to heat up his cauterizing irons, and all he had was strips of cloth, so he bandaged wounds instead of burning them. The bandaged patients had much better outcomes. Radioactivity. A French scientist put a rock next to some photographic film, and when he developed the film he found it has been ruined. He soon found he could replicate the effect. X-rays. Röntgen was fooling around with cathode ray tubes and decided to put a piece of metal in the path of the electron beam. And got very interesting radiation coming off the metal. The resulting radiation penetrated flesh, but not bone. The diode. Thomas Edison tried to use a wire coming out of the top of a light bulb to hold up parts of his light bulb, but when it was on, current flowed from the filament to the wire, even thought they weren't connected. He patented it, but others realized this would create a one-way electricity gate. Vulcanized rubber. Goodyear accidentally dropped sulfur into a rubber compound he was trying to develop. He found that the resulting rubber was both flexible and melt-resistant, which meant it could be poured into molds and retain its shape indefinitely. Gun cotton. A chemist spilled some chemicals and used a cloth to wipe them up. He put the cloth near the fire to dry, only to see it burst into flames and instantly vaporize. He realized he had an ammunition-quality explosive. Superglue was invented during World War II by accident. The inventor was trying to make clear gun scopes. I love how the video game character Kirby was created and how he became his own series. Originally, Kirby was created to be sort of a test dummy that would get a more detailed design later on, but the designers ended up falling in love with him as is and kept him as he was. The franchise reached its 30th anniversary this year, and it's one of Nintendo's strongest properties to this day. Silly putty. It was a failed attempt at making synthetic rubber, I believe, or maybe glue, I don't remember which. MDMA. Scientists are trying to invent an anticoagulant. Believe it or not, gunpowder. Some Chinese scientists were trying to create firebombs and made this powder-type substance that just exploded in their face instead. Matches. Special effects. For a while, it was assumed you had to keep the camera rolling through a whole scene, also easier to splice the movie together. A director forgot his name was filming a bus when his camera jammed. By the time he fixed it, the bus had left and there was a bench right behind it. When they looked at the film during editing, it looked like the bus had magically turned into a bench. LSD. Chocolate chip cookies. In 1930, Ruth Wakefield made them by accident. While making a batch of chocolate cookies, she ran out of baker's chocolate. She decided to use a slab of semi-sweet chocolate, break it into pieces and mix it into the dough, hoping it would melt into the mixture while it baked. But the pieces of chocolate stayed in place. Vulcanized rubber. Charles Goodyear came up with it by accident. Without it we don't have tires, gaskets, seals, soles of shoes, hoses, shock absorbers, and hell of a lot more. Pretty much changed the whole world. Microwave ovens. Story says some microwave scientist noticed a candy bar in his shirt pocket had partially melted, and presto, the Amana radar inch is born. Penicillin. Ivory soap floats because of an accident, sort of. As they were making a batch, someone forgot to turn off the mixer before everyone left for lunch. Agitating it longer trapped more air bubbles into the mix when it was pressed or poured into bars, making it buoyant. When it hit the market, customers reportedly went wild for floating soap. Apparently at the time there were still quite a few Americans who bathed in outdoor bodies of water. They were thrilled they didn't lose their soap when they inevitably dropped it. Plastic. Not invented, but discovered. The 3-degree cosmic background radiation was discovered by Bell Labs scientists trying to find the source of low-level radio interference. They even blamed it on bird droppings on the antenna before it was finally figured out. The time machine. I was trying to invent a more efficient hovercraft drive. I'll tell you more in 56 years. I read that the only reason rabbits exist in Australia is because a settler moved to the continent and had a bunch of rabbits shipped so he could hunt them on his land, but they somehow escaped and they, of course, populated the entire continent in the span of 50 years and became an invasive species. And all because some guy just wanted to hunt something. Artificial sweeteners. I'm fuzzy on the details, but it was on their hand and they licked their finger to turn a page in a book or something and noticed it was very sweet. Boom, artificial sweetener. Not quite invented by mistake, but Viagra was originally developed for some other medical condition I forget which, and the fact that it increased blood flow to the penis and thus facilitated erections was a byproduct. I actually heard crunchy hard pretzels Snyder's make were accidentally made when someone left the oven on too long to make regular pretzels. Beer. Teflon. The microwave. They were experimenting with microwaves and a scientist walked though with a chocolate bar in his pocket and it melted. Turns out it heats water molecules. And boom. The microwave oven. I feel like toast has to have been an accident. Phosphorus Hennig Brand tried to turn his pee into gold and got this instead. Potato chips. Cornflakes. The Powerpuff Girls. Anal sex. Hot dog sausages were invented when a German butcher used to feed his dog with the rest of his butcher shop's meat. He was curious and combined the rest meat and cooked it. Then he created the first sausage. Then started to sell the sausage with sauce, which was a success, but there were a lot of complaints because clients swarmed and stained with sauce when they touched the cooked sausage, so he called his stepbrother who was a baker and combined the sausage with bread. Viagra. The microwave was invented accidentally in 1945 by a self-taught engineer named Percy Spencer, who was leading a radar project for the defense giant, Raytheon. While testing a new vacuum tube called a magnetron, he discovered that a chocolate bar in his pocket had melted from the heat. He decided to try another experiment by placing some popcorn kernels near the magnetron, and he watched as the kernels popped into fluffy popcorns. https cellcook. Ca the accidental invention of the microwave. I believe this research was because they were trying to find alternative ways to communicate during World War II. Engineers planned to build a new radar system based on electromagnetic waves in the microwave region of the radio spectrum. Such a system would require smaller antennas and detect smaller objects than lower frequency, longer wavelength radars. Post-it notes invented by accident by 3M Popsicles as well. Source did a speech on accidental inventions in grade 6. Coke. Invented. An invention is the action of inventing something, typically a process or device. Dumbass Redditors me. Silly putty. They were trying to make new materials for airplane wheels. Ivory soap. Well, not the soap itself. But people were complaining that they wanted the ivory soap that floats. Lots of them. It was easier to find in the tub. They didn't make a soap that floated, but customers had possession of it. They began questioning employees. No repercussions. An employee had left a giant batching machine a whipper on overnight, and the machine whipped air into the soap, made it float. There was nothing wrong with it, so they packaged it and sold it. Where it was discovered it was so popular they started making all of the soap that way and advertised it Ivory, the soap that floats. The shart. It was intended to be a fart, but then something else happened. Champagne. LSD. Albert Hoffman was trying to create a treatment for migraines, and wound up creating a molecule that allows you to speak to the universe itself. It also cures migraines, so, win-win? I take 10 micrograms of LSD for my migraines and it always stops it in its tracks 45-50 minutes after dosing. Wild stuff. Drinking cow's milk, I hope, so much. Chocolate chip cookies. A fair number of inventions were made or discovered by accident in the pursuit of alternative goals. Cling film. I have heard that the concept for laser eye surgery was developed from someone who had gotten into an accident and cut their cornea with glass, but then could see better afterwards. I don't know, but thank you for saying by accident rather than on accident, which has become accordingly common. If I recall correctly, the cheeseburger.
I hope you all are doing well, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed this video. If you have something to say critically or otherwise, leave a comment. And if you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe to see more of it. I hope you all have wonderful and fulfilled lives.